Welcome back into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. No Illini game to talk over here with J Leman, our weekly, but I'm kind of looking forward to this. No loss to talk about, Jay, but also got a lot of listener submitted questions to kind of pick your brain about Illinois football and football in general. What was your weekend like? What games had your attention? I'm guessing Iowa, Purdue.
Well, Iowa, Purdue had my attention. I was actually watching the Bears game, of course, yesterday. That was unfortunate, although they teased me. Justin Fields starts out with a great drive, and then like in the third quarter, he kind of looks like, and even Greg Olson said, looks like it's getting going, and I don't know. Being an Illinois Bears fan is hard.
Can I ask you, Aaron Rodgers said, still own you. And it's true. I mean, the guy's just so dang good at what he does. I'm hoping one day Packers fans understand the pain of not having a Hall of Fame quarterback. But is there like the best smack talk you've ever had, like from an opponent? Like, do you remember one specifically, or did you give one that you remember?
Well, I had a teammate who, and the teammate will be left unnamed, but we were at Kinnick, or we were at Purdue or something, and they had looked up knowledge. The fans are pretty close at Kinnick and Ross State Stadium, and like they had done some homework on this guy, and they knew he was like a 4th or 5th year senior, and he was, carrying the water out, and so it's like, dude, you've been here 5 years and you're still carrying the water out. And the funny thing was, we didn't look back, but all of us, defenders were just laughing because it was like true. It was like, dude, you've been here 4 years. Like, you're supposed to be a football player, and all you do is the fact they did research on it was good. I mean, everybody has the stuff. I mean, I like to, I always, lineman, a good line for a lineman is, dude, if you didn't play football, like, what would you be in society? Look at you right now. No, that's just that's a hard one for a lineman. And they'll usually say something about you being soft or backing down from a hit or something. And we usually just, we can't say they're soft. So we usually try to degrade them in something that they look like, right? Which neither is good outside the football field. Neither do I don't do that outside the football field. Sometimes tempers flare on the football field. So that's what happens.
Yeah. All right, Jay, before we get into some things with Illinois and some things that Brett Bielema said today, including some injury updates that people should know, what did we learn about Iowa in that loss? Did what got exposed in that game?
Well, I think offensive ineptitude, right? They had really lived off, playing great defense. I can't remember if Purdue had 24 points or 27. But okay, well, they have a streak still intact of like 30 games keeping teams 24 or less. So they kept that streak, intact. And that was, so they played decent defense, but Jeff Brown really has that number. I mean, I think he's won 4 or 5 games against Iowa, and he seems to be the guy that has figured out Phil Parker's scheme. And they were basically living by the turnover, and that was setting up their offense. Their offense just simply can't get anything going with Petrus and even Goodson at running back. What's always interesting to me is that for as good as Iowa linemen are, they don't consistently lead the league in rushing or even in the top half, right? They just have had trouble doing that. But Iowa truly is a team that year in and year out can beat anybody or lose to anybody, and this is no different than that, because they've always had an issue really getting a playmaker at quarterback. In the years they have had a playmaker at quarterback, whether it's Brad Banks back in 2002, Ricky Stanzi in 2009, CJ Beathard in 2015, like they have a special team. Petrus isn't that guy yet for them. They're good in a lot of different facets, but I don't think they're an elite team as we saw.
Yeah, I would say good, but not maybe great / elite,
right,
like you said. Do we have that in the Big Ten? I mean, the Big Ten East has 4 teams in the top 9, I believe it is. Ohio State now 5, Michigan 6, Penn State 7, and Michigan State all the way up at number 9 after a close win at Indiana. Who you buying there, Jay? I mean, it's easy to say. Probably at the end of the year, Ohio State seems like the bet to win the Big Ten championship. It seems, but all these teams still play each other.
Yeah, it's first of all, I think the Big Ten's done a great job of just figuring out how to schedule it for maximum exposure. So they started out with a couple, big Big Ten matchups the first 4 weeks of the season, which, a lot of conferences don't do that. So I think that's good. They also had a couple teams play a marquee non-con, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State played Auburn. So they did a good job of that, but they keep a lot of the divisional games, kind of like baseball does and kind of like football and NFL does, to the end of the season, right? So Illinois got, Iowa, Minnesota, Northwestern left on the schedule, right? I mean, so you're going to have at least three divisional games in November, which I think makes it for a great race. But yeah, they are going to cannibalize themselves a little bit in the Big Ten East. I think it's sexy to go against Ohio State because they've been there so long. You're just begging for somebody else. Michigan has surprised me with how they've been sound. I mean, they pretty much handled Wisconsin. And, obviously we didn't know how good Wisconsin was, but we're judging how good they are based on us, right? Which isn't necessarily a great measuring stick. Here's what I think. I think Penn State with Sean Clifford healthy can beat anybody. I really do. Whether Sean Clifford's going to be healthy or not going long term, they've actually got some weapons on the outside and at tight end to actually be explosive offensively. I really like Brent Pry as a defensive coordinator coach. His dad coached Illinois in the Zook era. I think Brent Pry is a head coach in waiting, honestly, not at Penn State, but just a head coach. He's going to be a head coach. And so I really like what they do defensively, how they've recruited. So I really like Penn State. I think they've given Ohio State trouble, right? And I think this is the year if Clifford's healthy that Penn State will be. I like Penn State coming out of the East. I think Michigan State, they're just playing sound football. They probably have three of the better skill players in the league. Peyton Thorne, I think, is going to be a first or second round draft pick in a year or two. I really do. You look at his technique, how he keeps his shoulders perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, moves, shuffles, underrated athlete. And Jaden Reed and Jalen Naylor have made him look really, really good. And they protected him. They have these routes that take 4 or 5 seconds. They protect him. They get him to throw. And of course, you got Kenneth Walker, which is sucking everybody up. So those three skill players have really helped bolster that team. I think Scotty Hazelton at DC has done a great job as far as kind of getting the Spartan dog mentality back. Helped a ton by transfer portal guys at the corner, especially with Ronald Williams and Chester Kimbrough. Those are Florida and Alabama transfers. So I think Michigan State's going to make noise. They're going to upset one of the three of those, but I don't think they're going to win the East. I think we'll see a Penn State Iowa rematch in the East. So look out for, be careful for Purdue as well. Purdue's, I don't think they'll make it into the big because they've got 2 losses in the Big Ten currently, but because they lost to Minnesota and somebody else, right? Can't remember. No, they lost to Notre Dame. They only got 1 loss, right? They've got 1 loss in the Big Ten East. Big Ten West. I don't think that they're going to win the West, but I do think they're going to play a big factor on who does win. And they've already done that with Iowa. So it's interesting race because there's not one team that's out and about.
Yeah, I got a few.
It's really long-winded. Wow. There you go.
Purdue has 2 stars, right? Just 2 college football superstars in Karlaftis and David Bell.
Right.
That I've always questioned their depth. And I think that showed up against Illinois, right? When Bell was out. But they do have 2 stars that can carry them. And they do just play well against Iowa. The other thing is, I'm really interested to see if Michigan goes to JJ McCarthy at some point at quarterback, because it feels like the one thing they need something in the passing game to compete with Ohio State or Penn State. The other thing is Penn State they can stick with Ohio State athletically, right? Like they just have, they're the one team in the Big Ten that feels like it has the athletes to keep up with Ohio State.
Right. They have the athletes. And, one thing I think that has been largely overshadowed, defensive line, they've always had guys at D-line. And if there's one thing that a D-line can create, it's just chaos. And I've always been impressed with their ability to recruit on the D-line and create havoc. But like you said on the edge, Dotson on the edge, Clifford, when he's healthy, I think can be as good as anybody. I'm going to mess up his name. Urich, I think, is the offensive coordinator. Give credit to James Franklin. He made a really tough decision. So he poached, the offensive coordinator from Minnesota, Kirk Shiraka, who was at Minnesota, had great success. Minnesota had beaten Penn State in that 2019 season. They got up close. They brought Shiraka in. Obviously, there's the pandemic year, so there's a lot of factors. They didn't like what they saw from the receiver position a lot, and they pulled the plug. That's what James Franklin gets paid to do. And quite frankly, it's paid off in spades for them. I think if Clifford stays in the game against Iowa, no question they win that football game. And then you're talking about Penn State being the number 2 team in the country right now. And I think that would make them the favorite going to play Ohio State. So that injury is the only real blemish on Penn State. And I think it's a team that's improving throughout the year, which Penn State usually does.
Good time for Illinois to get them.
Yep.
I want to ask you before we get into this, because I don't even know if we break down like keys to the game against a team like Penn State with Illinois, but what's an off week like for players? Obviously the coaching staff went on the road recruit. That's very important right now for this staff. But what gets done from a football perspective during an off week?
Well, you're going to do a whole self-scout. A self-scout is basically, if I were to play Illinois this week, what film would I look at? And so all the coaches are going to look at, okay, let's go back and prepare like we're playing ourselves. What are our tendencies? What do we tend to do? What do we not do? What do we do well? What are our ratios on third down? Do we run the ball all the time on first down? Are we 50-50? And everybody has this, I'm going to say everybody, but a lot of people aspire to be 50-50 on everything, right? And it just doesn't work out like that, especially when you are a team like Illinois that often is playing from behind or maybe doesn't have a quarterback that can do that. So they're going to do that. They're also going to look at what defenses have worked well. Like, are there certain calls? They're like, man, we have stopped 8 out of 10 third downs we've called this defense. We should maybe call this more. Or, hey, we've given up 4 big plays on this defense. And so you take a pause on that. You go back to some fundamentals. A lot of the young guys get some reps. And of course, I think they let guys go home for 2 or 3 days if they can make it home. I think, with the kind of the COVID protocols loosened a little bit, they're allowing that to happen. So, that's a good thing. I think they need a mental break. These kids go through a lot.
So what will you be looking for against Penn State? You're 24-point underdogs. I don't think anyone expects Illinois to win. So what are you looking for out of this team that they can translate into Rutgers, who lost to Northwestern, right? Not a very good Big Ten team right now. They can take into Minnesota that is wounded a little bit, even coming off a win, or Northwestern at the end of the year.
Well, I don't think Illinois has hung defensively with a team that has an explosive passing attack like this team. And so for me, it always starts on defense. Can we continue to take the steps under Ryan Walters, which I believe they've taken a lot of positive steps in the right direction? You're playing against the Big Ten East elite class right now. And frankly, you're going to be stretched at tight end, at receiver, at running back, at offensive line. You're going to see a lot of different things. And Sean Clifford's going to press you a lot. And so I want to see the defense continue to battle and keep us in football games. So it starts with the defense. I think every good program starts with defense. Offensively, where do I begin? Right. Whether we can believe we can run the football or not, I want to see us try to do it. I want to see, we go into the game saying, well, we're going to give Chase Brown 15 carries and Josh McCray 8. Well, you got to convert some third downs to actually have the ability to give those guys those runs, right? It's not as easy as that, and you can't get behind quick. So I think staying in the game, at least to establish some sort of game plan. And then we've been talking about this a lot, but we've got to get better quarterback play to make some conversions, whether that's Art, whether that's Brandon Peters, if he's healthy, or some other person that we don't know about, Isaiah Williams or somebody else, but we need better play on it. So that's really what I'm looking for. I don't think penalties and turnovers have been an issue, right? And so that's a positive thing. We can talk about a team. I'm not going to call this a young team, but under a new staff, sometimes you see that. I mean, we've seen just the horrible obliteration that is Nebraska football and close football games. I mean, it's like I always say, guys, unless Nebraska's up by 2 TDs going in the fourth quarter, don't bet on Nebraska to pull through. That's a great bet right there to make sure that, Nebraska's going to fall apart in the fourth quarter. It
is painful to see Scott Frost camera shots right now. And he's in agony at all times, it feels like. And when it feels like Murphy's Law, I mean, Illinois, I know fans are bred that way, but Nebraska fans, surely, because they're close in these games against some really good teams at times too. And then against worse teams. I think Nebraska should be better in Minnesota this year based on the injuries Minnesota's had, and they find a way to lose.
So they found a way to lose. And, what's interesting is Nebraska's had some very memeable head coaches, whether it's Bo Pelini But on a different, just going crazy, or the frowns of Scott Frost looking exasperated.
Yeah.
So they're great for memes, but man, it's been painful to watch. And if you're a Nebraska fan and right now you've lost to Minnesota and Illinois, and you probably chalk those up as wins before the season. And it's just a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. All right, Jay, before we get into the questions that the listeners sent, and there's a lot of good ones. I can't wait to see what you have to say. Some updates. Mike Epstein not going to be back with the team this year. Sounds like he's got a personal decision to make, and it just stinks, man. His career has been so good when he's been on the field, but just couldn't stay healthy. Jake Hansen sounds like he's going to be out for a while. Brett Bielema said something about an announcement later this week, so that doesn't sound very good. Then when it comes to Brandon Peters, hasn't been cleared to practice yet. This is as of Monday afternoon. So we'll see if he practices Tuesday, but hasn't practiced since Wisconsin. So I think we're going to see Artur Sikowski out there. And that's a tough spot to be against Penn State. But just thoughts on those three guys. I mean, obviously Mike Epstein, you feel for his career. Jake Hansen, you feel for him coming back this year with all the injuries he's had. And then, Art Sikowski, I think we've wanted to see as the starter. We might get it this week.
Well, first and foremost, heart goes out to those guys. College football is a brutal, unforgiving game. I feel bad for Epstein. He's a guy that I think committed to Cubit, right? Years ago. Wow, we're going back now. And, was a Gatorade Player of the Year, I think, in Florida. Was, I think, offered by Michigan and other teams. I mean, he's a good football player and just a guy whose career just got totally derailed by injuries. So Mike comes from a great family, good guy. I know he's going to be a success in life. We wish him the very best. I'm sad for him. I know he's sadder than most, but that we didn't get to see more of Mike healthy. I don't think he ever played a game in November. Not much in October. As far as Jake, if he remained healthy, I had no doubt I think he'd be a top 10 Illinois linebacker and played on better teams. And that's saying something. I really do. I think he had instincts. Obviously, he had a knack for getting the ball out. He never was the craziest athlete, but very smart and able to do everything you asked him to do. And then with Brandon Peters being banged up, I think when you have three big leaders like that go out, I don't know, Epstein wasn't leading on the field, but we don't know what he was like off the field, certainly as a 6-year guy. It could really represent a changing of the guard in his coaching staff's mind. Okay, our defensive leaders out, our offensive leaders out. We have 5 games left. It doesn't look great for us to make a bowl. It's certainly mathematically eligible, but Harry Carey in the 90s used to say that the Cubs were never out of it either, when in August when they were 20 games behind St. Louis, right? But I think it could really represent a changing of the guard of, hey, we're really looking forward to building in the future, whether it be not just Tariq Barnes and Caitlin Tolson at the linebacker position. Obviously, Calvin's heart is hurt, but also at the quarterback position, you got Sikowski coming back next year, we think, and maybe it's a different quarterback, but just collectively, they need to really move forward. And I think they got a sense for that with those 3 guys out, recruited on the bye week. Wow, we've got a long way to go, and maybe it's time to start that journey now.
Yeah, like some people think maybe a huge youth movement, Jay. He still wants to win games, right? So I don't see him going huge youth movement, but I agree with you. I mean, today during his press conference, he talked a lot about recruiting because we asked a lot about recruiting because we know this is the most important thing they have to do right now, right? Is build up this roster. But he was talking about how the quarterback room, they had to take 2 guys out of there that are some of their best receivers now, and Isaiah Williams and Deuce Spann. So that quarterback room still has to be remade. The offensive line, he made reference, last 3 recruiting classes, they basically have 1 guy, not even. The last 3 recruiting classes, they have no guys in their 2 deep, right? Julian Pearl is the youngest guy in their 2 deep, I believe, and he's a redshirt sophomore, and he's really should be a redshirt junior. So they just haven't recruited very well. So they know, and he talked about the transfer market. They're going to have to go heavy here because they need to compete to help them recruit. So it's this never ending cycle, but at least they got some more spots now with the NCAA allowing 7 extra spots that they don't have to go so transfer heavy that they take away from a foundation of prep recruits.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good. I mean, I think the full weight of the job that is the Illinois turnaround, we said it really hit him in Virginia. I think it's really hit him as you get into the meat of, and he faced his old team, about a week and a half ago, of how far Illinois is away. And it really makes you applaud the ability that, Ron Turner had to turn around and go to a bowl game in his third year and win a Big Ten championship in year 5. And what Ron Zook did, to go to a handful of bowl games, to go to the Rose Bowl, how difficult that actually is to do. And we've seen, 2 or 3 guys, I won't count Coach Cubitt, but he didn't really have a chance, but Beckman and Lovey Smith really fail spectacularally. Really. I mean, there was really no chance to really get into the upper echelon of the team. And so I think Brett I'm not even talking about leashes at this point. I mean, the guy is going to be here for 4 or 5 years. He's the guy, right? I mean, there is no plan B past Brett Bielema. He is the plan, right? And here's a guy who's won games in college. He's coached at a lot of different levels, had a lot of different mentors. He has the style that we want. He's an Illinois native. I still think we got the right guy. I think he's got a great staff. I really do. I believe in all that. The hard thing to say is that the personnel is just not there, but it is the truth.
All right, Jay, let's get to some listener submitted questions. I gave them the floor, so we'll pepper you with those questions when we come back on the Illini Inquirer Podcast. All right, Jay, you ready for these listener submitted questions?
Fire away.
All right, here we go. Let's just not waste any time. Illini Bat on our board said, was it a good idea for U of I to fire Ron Zook and his staff after back-to-back bowl winning seasons, something the program hasn't even come close to accomplishing since?
Hey, that's a great question. I really like Coach Zook. Obviously, I'm probably biased on this answer. No question. I believe Illinois would have gone to a bowl in that 2012 season with Ron Zook and probably 2013, as long as Shieldhouse was quarterback. The recruiting did drop off after that 2009 season. That was a debacle. They had tons of talent. Mike Schultz was the offensive coordinator, I believe. They brought him in. I think that Zook needed Loxley to run his offense. And the players that were recruited by Loxley were loyal to Loxley. And when Mike Loxley took the New Mexico job, it messed a lot of things up. Defensively, I think Vic Koenig was a good stopgap. Was a great defensive coach, but part of that was the talent they had up front. I mean, I'm not sure that, Kurt Mallory and Dan Dish couldn't have coached those guys up either. Akeem Spence, Michael Buchanan, Whitney Merciless, Corey Legit. I mean, that's your front 4, guys. That is your front 4. So Tavon Wilson at one corner, Martez Wilson, and a guy that I think never gets the credit was Ian Thomas.
Jonathan Brown on those teams.
Yeah, could hit. Yeah, Jonathan Brown could hit like a freight train. All those guys. I mean, you look at their front 7, and wow, Dante Hardiman was a headhunter. Before the injury took him out. So they had a lot of guys, right? When we think about this, the talent they had on defense and the recruits, and not just on defense. I mean, Michael LaShore, AJ Jenkins at receiver, at tight end, and Cumberland. I mean, John Asamoah. The linemen they had, Hugh Thornton, all those guys. I mean, I can go on and on about guys that they had in Shieldhouse. I think they would have been better with Ron Zook being the coach.
Yeah, I don't think they failed to upgrade. That is clear. And they still have been looking for that. Maybe they found it in Brett Bielema. The one thing is like the 08 and 09 teams are 2 of the most underachieving teams I've seen, Jay, just to be fair, right? Like they needed to win. And I know Mike Schultz being an offensive coordinator for 08, certainly, or 09, certainly didn't help. But like you see those teams, and you see the players that were on those teams, and it's like, how did they only go 8-16 those 2 seasons with Regis and Juice Williams, right? Like, so that was on Zook too, right?
Yeah, that was on Zook. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, but some of the former players, I know in that 07 team, we had really felt in 2007, I thought along with the rest of the country, that Illinois was going to be a factor for years to come with some of the recruits that we had. We thought we had really turned around a program. And I think one of the more disappointing things was when that large senior class of mine left. We felt that 2008 and 2009 just didn't play up to its ability. And I think that was hard for us to see, a program that we had just worked so hard to build up just kind of fall apart. So not blaming the guys or anything, but it was hard to see that.
Yeah. All right. Another one from the board. While Illinois certainly has limited personnel What does Jay think Illinois could do more of on offense to help their quarterbacks out? Whether that's just more pre-snap motion, rolling out in the pocket, designed runs. Just curious what Jay thinks should be added.
Hey, that's a great question. They tried the quick game last week, and I couldn't get much done. It's hard to do quick game against the man coverage of Wisconsin. So one, I would do quick game. Two, I think both the guys look more comfortable rolling out or sprint out. I would get them out of the pocket more. Three, I would do quarterback run 5 to 10 times a game. I know you can't afford to get the guy hurt at this point, but if you get him hurt, then you get him hurt. At this point, we need some yards. Like, I hate to say that, right? But both of them have been, could run a quarterback draw or a zone read to keep people honest, right? I would also throw Isaiah Williams in to give him a break for just a mental break for 5 or 6 plays. Like, one thing a Wildcat does, when I say, oh, they're taking the quarterback out, he hates it. Well, it's kind of a mental break just to say, okay, we're in the drive. This is the down. I can just kind of go off and be a receiver, throw, whatever you do. So do that. And no, the biggest thing is the best friend of a quarterback is a great running game. And so we got to continue to run the football. But right now, it's almost like we got to complete some throws to loosen that up. And I would not be afraid I would max protect, meaning I would keep 2 tight ends and a back end to really protect Art Sikowski or Brandon, whoever's in there, and have Deuce Spann go 1-on-1 deep 2 or 3 times a game. Mm-hmm. I just take a shot just to take a shot and say, hey, we're actually going to do this. And so those are the 5 or 6 things I would do.
All right, Pond Hockey, this is kind of a follow-up to this one. What does he think are the most and least correctable issues with Peters and Sikowski?
So as far as correctable, I'll say getting the ball out on time for Peters. Like, you can correct that, okay? That's a confidence thing. That's a repetition thing, all right? I think also the ability just to be a better, pocket presence has been an issue. That's correctable. At this point, as a 6th year, though, I'm not sure we're going to see a more accurate thrower. That takes years and years and years of practice, right? You can say, get your front foot down and stuff. It's kind of like a guy who has bad form when he's shooting a basketball. Like, well, if we just move his elbow in straighter, he's going to hit threes. Well, no, not exactly, right? Like
Ben Simmons at this point might not ever hit threes, right?
Right. I mean, it's like, I remember watching Aaron Rodgers. He played against us, Cal versus Illinois, I think 2003. And
do you know he'd be that good?
What?
Do you know he'd be that good?
Well, the funny thing is, I remember thinking, and all Tedford quarterbacks really held it all awkward up here. Achilles Smith, you'll see him. It's a Tedford thing. But one thing I noticed was his release was unbelievable, right? It was just, where no wind up at all. And his release was so hard to break on because it was just from here to here. And one thing I see in these guys is, especially Sikowski, has a wind up, and so you see that and you're like, okay, like that gives a chance for guys to break on the ball. They're just not accurate. Can the route timing be fixed? Yes, it can. I don't know if it can be fixed in 5 or 6 weeks, what we have left, right? How about just in general, just being overall a good quarterback? I don't know if that can be fixed. I hate to say that, but there's a lot of different things that go into it. And they've been asking Brandon Peters to be more of a leader vocally for years. Hasn't happened. Art does that better. And like we told you, you got the surgeon versus the general, right? Whichever one you want in there, go put him in there. It sounds like Art, because of injuries, is going to get the nod. But those are kind of the things that are correctable and are not.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. Okay, Swedish Chief said, who was Jay's favorite to be head coach after Lovey got fired? So when that happened and we had a week there to speculate, I was on the Lance Leipold train, Jay. I thought he made a lot of sense. I thought he could be like the Jerry Kill of this program. Who was your guy? Do you have a guy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I heard some great things about Lance Leipold. Obviously, I mean, unbelievable record at Whitewater, and then went to Buffalo because that was the only job that, he could really get. I know a lot of alumni reached out to me on behalf of Kirby Wilson to try to get Kirby here, who's been a running backs coach in the league for years. Trying to think back who the other candidates were at this time. It was Leipold.
I had Jim Leonard on my list. I just
whether he would. Whether he would come or not, I that was doubtful. Trying to think who I thought was a decent fit. There was one guy I can't remember now.
Sean Lewis out of Kent State was a name that was bandied about.
This is probably on my dream list. I was thinking like, would Tom Herman and Chris Ash come from Texas over here, just to kind of rebuild something? I think he's got too much urban influence to ever take a job in the Big Ten West. I don't know, at Illinois, but I had thought about that and thought maybe because he had some success at Iowa State, we're probably too low of a name to get that guy. So yeah, that's kind of who I thought of. I knew Brett Bielema was on there, and I was not opposed to Brett. I thought he was a good fit. I just didn't know that it sounded like that was Josh's guy from the get-go. We don't know that. I mean, that's how it was presented to us. You'd always had the, I don't think he's ready to be a head coach, but the guy who played against me, Marcus Freeman, became the D coordinator at Notre Dame. Not sure if he's ready to be a head coach, but I certainly think he's a guy that could recruit well, has Midwest ties, obviously has a great mentor with Luke Fickell, and he'll be a head coach soon, no doubt.
This is kind of a name I forgot to put in there. Jeff Monken was a name from Army that we hear all the time. I couldn't get around the Army thing, Yeah.
I know Monken was from like Florida or something.
Yeah, somebody asked, how could Army run against Wisconsin but not Illinois? And some people always ask, could the triple option work at the Big Ten? So I'll ask you that, Jay.
I mean, I think we saw what Paul Johnson did at Navy for 15 years. Not at Navy. He came from Navy to Georgia Tech. So he's out of Naval Academy, and then obviously he went down to Georgia Tech. And I would say that Georgia Tech over that time averaged, 6 to 8 wins. They had 1 year, went to the Orange Bowl, lost to Iowa, but you could win 6 to 8 games. You can't win a national championship, but maybe in the 20s and 50s, we gave up our actually believing in a national championship. So maybe it's better to win 6 to 8 games. I know a lot of people would trade that off.
Right. All right. Kessler asks, have you noticed specific things the players do better under this coaching staff than the last one?
Well, I think they play defense overall better. Number one. I think it seems to me they play zone coverage and keep guys in front of them better than the previous one. I think that the turnover culture that Lovey established, which we give him credit for, has carried over some. So I want to give Lovey, credit for that. I think I've seen at least better technique in the defensive line. I think the young guys, it might be just Johnny and Keith and Roderick, I feel like they're playing with good team. They get overpowered sometimes. I don't think they're like man amongst boys yet, but I feel like it's better technique. I feel like their ability to really, Chase Brown made some unbelievable plays last year as well, but I think they're trying to coach him to kind of be a different runner than maybe Rod Smith's offense needed him to be, and they're working on that. I think their ability to get young guys playing and have faith in them. I thought the last staff kind of threw guys out there on an island and said, "You're a young guy, just go play." I don't think they've done that. I think they've put guys in position to succeed when they go in and not put them out there too early, whether that's called the Matt Nagy philosophy with Justin Fields or not. It seems to at least be working for a college kid.
CVB asks, how big of a jump should we expect from Walters and Peterson's side of the ball in year two? I think that depends on personnel upgrades too, right?
Yeah, it depends on personnel. I think, first of all, Walters had a big jump already.
Yeah.
But I think they can definitely be in that 5 to 8 range ranked defense in the Big Ten. I don't think you're going to beat Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa's defense, right now. I mean, those are kind of the guys. Penn State has a great D. So, I mean, those are your top 4 defenses. We talk about the West and the East, but I think we can be in that 5 to 8 range. Ohio State doesn't have a great defense by numbers at all. Northwestern's been down since Hank Wentz left and their backers left. So I think we can make a jump into that up, mid. We might be there now if you look at actual numbers, but I just think as far as being a dominant defense. Offensively, I tell you what, we've got the running backs to really make it happen. I think it's going to be totally predicated. I hate to say totally predicated on 3 things: receivers, quarterback, and O-line. that's how many holes we have. There's really, those all work together. But what I would like to see, Urban Meyer came under fire for a lot of things, but he came under fire lately for a comment he made about what his ideal offensive output was. And he said 250 rushing yards, 250 passing yards, which rarely happens in the NFL. It happened all the time at Ohio State, right? And what I would like to see is, Illinois be at the 250 200 rushing yards a game, 150 passing yards a game. So it's 350 yards of offense. I think we can get to that point next year. And if you have 150 yards of passing, that means you're probably picking up 4 to 6 crucial first downs through the air. And if we had those, we'd probably have 2 more wins this year. So I hate to get really technical with you, but that's where I see our numbers going.
No, that's good. I think those are fair and expectations too. CVB also asks, how bad does an offense or defense have to be to pull the plug year one and switch coordinators? Is it a free year regardless?
I think this is a free year. I think he went out and got Tony Peterson because he liked the style. Listen, Tony Peterson was a coordinator in the Big Ten for like 8 years with Glenn Mason. I mean, the guy's been in the league for a long time. He didn't forget how to coach. I don't think they're going to pull the plug. He plays Brett Bielema's style. I think they're going to have to recruit guys that can block the way they want to block. I don't know if they're there yet right now. And I don't know how many injuries there are either. So I don't know how banged up Palczewski or Kramer is. So I think it's been tough sledding with that.
Antor Mack said, what is Jay's brutally honest opinion on Lovey Smith?
I don't think he was a good college football coach. I think he would probably tell you that he was, he probably didn't coach his best football at Illinois. Let's just say that. I mean, the guy's had success, right? He's a good football coach. I think he's a better pro coach. I think he loves to coach ball. And unfortunately in college, or fortunately, it's way more than ball. It's, being plugged into the community, raising money, being part of alumni events. I think he did a good job of setting a high character standard for the University of Illinois and trying to recruit guys and have a high character standard there. So nothing against his character, nothing against who he is as a football coach. I don't think college football was a good fit for him. I just never felt like it fit. Didn't feel like he was having fun. Some of that's his personality. But it just didn't feel like a fit. And so I would say he didn't coach his best football at Illinois.
No, you're right. All right, another one. Assuming we look for a quarterback in the transfer portal, where does Bielema start? What qualities do we look for? What's the pitch? Are we just looking for a better version of Art?
That's a really good question. So I don't think we're looking for the little dual threat guy, right? But I think it's kind of become a standard that you have to have some mobility in this league. Like you look at some of the quarterbacks, like, okay, not all of them have mobility, but Mertz is a decent athlete, right? He can run a little bit. Peyton Thorne, underrated athlete. Clifford, great athlete. Stroud, great athlete. We don't have to have a guy like that, but we have to have a little bit of mobility. I think Sikowski and Peters have that, right? I think you're looking for a guy, quite honestly, that's just more accurate. I hate to be so simple, guys, but I go back to this example all the time. People talk about arm strength. They talk about size. They talk about mobility. Drew Brees was not excellent in arm strength, was not excellent in size. He was decently mobile, yes, but his accuracy is uncanny. The most accurate quarterback ever. And so really it comes down to putting the ball on the numbers, right? A guy that I know, Jeremy, you like, I liked Rod Smith, like Brock Purdy, at Iowa State, has had a great career. Not big, not overly fast, has a little wiggle to him, not overly strong arm. He's a pretty darn accurate passer, though. I think you look at that. I like to look at those programs who have historically struggled, Iowa State, Illinois being one, and say, well, what works here? Shoot, Jason Verduzco played great here. He was 5'10", right? Can you put the ball on the money is the question. And it just drives me crazy when I look at a team like Kentucky with Will Levis, who's having a great year. Is it Will Levis? I think, yeah. At Kentucky is starting QB. Well, where'd he come from? How did Kentucky get him? Right? I mean, like, they're Kentucky. Yeah, I think Joker Phillips, that's a guy I have coach of the year, Is it Joker Phillips? No, it's It's not Joker. It's
Oops.
Stoops. Joker was there like 10 years ago, guys. But Stoops, I think I know they lost to Georgia, but like, I think what he's been doing in the SEC consistently has been pretty impressive.
I know how I would answer this question, but this is from Tim. With the Iowa loss and lack of holding them in Wisconsin back, does the offense Brett Bielema wants to employ come with a ceiling?
So basically, he's saying, looking at Wisconsin, Iowa's offense.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. Does it come with the ceiling? Yes. And I would say all complementary football comes with a ceiling. Complementary football says that when you hear those phrases, complementary football, read, i.e., we don't have enough athletes to just outscore people every day, right? So we have to use ball control. We have to play defense and special teams. So basically, don't count the SEC West, don't count Ohio State and Penn State. Those guys don't have to play complementary football. They got enough athletes to make up for whatever they want to do, okay? If you're a program that is not a top 15 program, you need to play complementary football. That's just the way it is. And so complementary football is saying, if we don't have the athletes to go out and score somebody or just dominate up front. You watch Georgia's defensive line. I mean, I think there's probably 7 of the front 7, all 7 of them are playing the NFL. Somebody came out, there's 17 NFL draft picks. It's just a different breed. I mean, it's a different style of athlete. Like those guys are unbelievable.
Those schools that he's talking about, that Iowa and Wisconsin, sure, they'd love to be there. Right. They can't recruit that way. Like they just can't do that. So that's what they have to do to be in the top 10 or top 15, which is a pretty great place to be if you're Illinois. So I understand the question, but yeah, there is a ceiling because they don't get the talent of these other schools. And the brutal truth of college football is, as you said, maybe 10, 15 teams that can be in the mix for that college football playoff most years. And then everybody else is playing a different game right now.
Exactly. And, I pick out Georgia just because I've watched them on tape, but the amount of athleticism that they have as far as length and speed is unbelievable. And you just look at the top 15, they have a chance to win it all. If you don't, and you're trying to win a game, go to a bowl game and have a specialty every 5 or 6 years, you play complementary football. And quite frankly, those are the players in this region that you can recruit. And so, there is a ceiling.
Yeah. James asks, review the change in O-line scheme with Rod Smith's offense and Tony's. What is the difference that you see between how they play offensive line wise?
Yeah, great question. So first, I always like to look at the splits of the offensive and defensive line. We're very, very tight splits with Tony Peterson, meaning what is the distance between the outside leg of like the guard and the inside leg of the tackle? They're pretty tight, and we're packed in there along with tight ends and whatnot. Rod's going to try to run the football through formation, a lot of what they call 11 and 10 personnel. That means 1 back, 1 tight end, and 11, 3 wide receivers, or 10 personnel, 1 back, 4 wide receivers. And you spread out the team. And they also used a lot of different pulling and misdirection and quarterback run in Rod's system, where we under Tony Peterson do a lot of zone blocking. We're trying to reach people and whatnot. And it's a little bit different. Both can work, as we've seen. Both have their ups and downs, but that's the main differences.
Drew asks, why would a kid come to Illinois rather than Iowa or Wisconsin or honestly any other Power 5 school? Basically, he does a little complaining here, Jay, and he's upset about his program. But he's asking, what would be the pitch? Like, what's a winning pitch recruiting wise to recruits right now?
I remember when I used to be on a player panel for Ron Zook when the recruits would come in and families would be able just to ask questions to the players about why they should come here. One time somebody asked me something and I was like, well, we got it all. That was just the typical, pitch of like, we got this, we had support, we got facility. And Zook just smelled how bad that was. He actually cut me off as like, listen. He finished the answer for me, but then he came up to me later. Here's the answer that we tell everybody. Okay. You don't throw away that last answer. The people make a place. Okay. A place is special. This is where we don't have any facilities or anything. A place is special because of the people here. We got special people here. Number one. Number two, do you want to be part of something that's great right now? Or do you want to build something that's great yourself? And this is a chance to do that. So the people are great. You can build something great here and build a legacy here that hasn't been here, hasn't been sustained here. And those are the pitches you got to pitch. You can't go apples to apples with, look at our facility. Well, this is nice now, but, or, we're just as good as X. No, we're unique. Okay. We got great people, that people make a place, and you have a chance to build something yourself and not just plug into a system and be part and ride the wave of momentum. You get to create your own momentum.
Yeah, I think that's a great pitch. Maybe you can get the 10% of kids that would rather go there than to something established, right? But also, Jay, you got to be in early on kids, right? Like you have to be there early, and you have to be on them often, and you have to develop those relationships. Like they beat out, Iowa for Aiden Lawfrey. That's a big time win for them. I know he's from Gibson City, but you're able to keep him. So yeah, that's why you got to be great at development and great at evaluation with all this too, because you're not going to win a lot of head-to-head battles against the proven programs.
No, I know, absolutely. And we need as many wins as you can get. Like we got to win the Gibson City battle, right? I mean, we got to win that battle. So you also got to just say, how good are these coaches at actually developing the players that get here? And we haven't had a chance to really see that. And so we give a lot of nods to recruiting, but they're going to have to develop these players when they get here and put them in the right spot and put them in position to win and put the weight on that they need to and the speed they need to have.
All right, just a few more, Jay, before I let you go. Any chance the long hair comes back? That was one.
Man, funny because I haven't gotten a haircut in like 4 weeks or 5 weeks. My wife's like, wow, you need to schedule every 4 weeks. It starts looking bad, especially with the beard. You become like a mountain man. So as a married man, I think the long hair is gone, at least for now. I love the way it looked out of a baseball cap or coming out or out of a helmet, but I got no helmets to wear anymore. So probably no, but thanks for the question.
What did you use conditioning wise, shampoo? Did you have a huge ordeal back in the day, or you just like?
That was so cheap, back in the day, you could get, before inflation hit, you get Swab for like 95 cents at Walmart, right? And so I was using the Swab, whatever. I mean, apple green smell or whatever you would do, green apple. And that's what I was using. I actually didn't wash it up. I remember Cassie Arner at that point, who was the SID director, demanded that I not only wash my hair, but that I comb it before I sit down for any interviews. And so in the most famous interview I've ever done, obviously, is the Pack Hyenas clip. Everybody talks about, you use YouTube, the Pack Hyenas clip, where I talk with a bad accent and do a bunch of different things. But before that clip, she was combing my hair. Like, you look horrible, because it was horrible. She's like, you're going on national TV, you are combing your, and she combed it for me. So it looks kind of manicured in that. And I'll never forget, she took care of me.
You spoke in what accent? I don't remember this one.
You go look on YouTube and look up Ohio State, Illinois, 2007. And I kind of say, like, we're like a pack of hyenas. Like I'm a little, the pack hyenas are not the biggest, like the king of the jungle, but if they all gather, they can take down the king of the jungle. It was an analogy, kind of like surgeon and doctor, that I was trying to say, like, listen, we're obviously not number one like Ohio State, but we're nasty. Yeah. And I kind of said, like, nasty. And it's good for a laugh. It's kind of embarrassing. I look back at it now, but that is the number one clip that I get people tagging me on, or people will call me. I have announcers and say, hey, how's the pack of hyenas doing? And I can't take full credit for it. I got to give this, credit to Tom Sims, the D-line coach, who would be like, we're like a pack. We're not the biggest dog, but man, the hyenas are the meanest, most feared. When we get together, and this, only thing I knew about hyenas was Lion King. They were bad, and they were taking down lions too. And so he was breaking it down in language we could understand. So Tom Sims gets the credit for the pack hyenas. Most people think I came up with it. Tom Sims is the guy. And still, people this day, like a pack of hyenas. Just look it up, Google it.
One more, Jay. Somebody asked, does Jay still eat raw eggs or pure olive oil like he ate when he played?
I do still drink raw eggs. My kids like it. There's not a better, nutritionally more sound meal when you're in a hurry than raw eggs. Like, I can grab like some chips, but man, I'm getting the raw eggs. Why? 6 grams of protein, 4.5 grams of healthy fats. They got 40 nutrients for brain function. You don't cook out any of the stuff at all. Never have gotten salmonella. People have always asked, have you gotten sick? No. The only time that I had trouble was, there's a place at the University of Illinois campus that has just great meat. It's called the Meat Lab, and they would sell meat there, and I would cook it up and never had a problem with it. It was great. It was like $3.79 a pound for like their top sirloin. So this is 15, 20 years ago, guys. I mean, back in the old days. So I would go there and then they would sell eggs by like the 30 flat for like $2, right? And so I would go there, get all my eggs and meat. To put on weight at one point, to go from 205 to 245, I came in at 205. I was eating 1.5 pounds of red meat a day and 20 eggs a day. And so what ended up happening was I thought, man, I got tired of cooking meat. So I started eating the meat raw. Now I do not recommend this for me. And it wasn't because the meat was bad, it's because it wasn't supposed to be eaten raw. My stomach started bothering me, right? So I still love the meat lab. Chuck Stites was there for years. So I had all these little systems of where to get food for cheap and how to get bigger. I became obsessed with how could I legally get as big, strong, and fast as possible. So I read this book that's kind of an off-market book now called Natural Hormonal Enhancement, how to actually increase your testosterone growth hormone naturally, did all that stuff. I mean, this is exclusive stuff for you. I even went to McKinley, McKinley is the student hospital. And at that point, I had a doctor I was working with who would read my blood, and he would tell me what I needed to eat and different things. And all above board. I wasn't taking any bad supplements. I was just obsessed with trying to be the best. And he's like, is there any way you can get blood work? So I would go into McKinley and say, as a student, I'm just not feeling right. My doctor says I need, to check out my levels of all my blood work on this. And, that worked for 2 or 3 times, and they ran the test for me, and I would send it, okay, eat this, and you need more protein, you need to go to sleep more and whatnot. And then finally, they're like, why do you keep coming in here? All these, you're 100% healthy. So I had a way to it was helping me though, get my free testosterone up and whatnot. And so I was doing all this stuff because I really wanted to turn the program, I wanted to be good. I was at a point where I was going to sleep at night at say 10 or 11, and I would set my alarm to wake up at 2 a.m. so that I had a fridge in my room. I would open up a cottage cheese, eat the cottage cheese because it has casein protein that's like longer lasting protein. And so I would eat that, and then I would go to bed, which is so stupid because now it's like now they know you never want to interrupt sleep, but I was like, I got to get bigger. And you know about having bad morning breath. Wow. Try eating cottage cheese at 2. Don't brush your teeth and go to bed. Wow. So one time there'll be an episode I can tell you all the nutrition hacks that I did, all the different things that I've done. I basically made my body an experiment to try to get as big and as fast as possible because I wasn't as big as fast as possible. And I felt like it gave me a mental edge. Like I was like, these guys have not been eating what I've been eating. Like I'm a savage. So that is some stuff that's never been recorded. That is exclusive for you guys at Illini Inquirer.
I love it, but you gave so many great info. And I'm like, wait, you just ate raw meat. Like, what drove you to eat raw meat?
I got tired of cooking it. I mean, when I was eating 5, 6, 7 times a day, I was like,
what's your thought process? You open up, imagine of the meat, and you just dive right.
Well, the hardest thing was it was so hard to chew. When you're a kid and your mom gives you steak and you're like still eating the steak 20 minutes later, like, Mom, she's like, finish your plate. I'm like that was like me, but I was older because when you cook the meat, it breaks down a little bit and you can eat it better, right? But yeah, so I just was like, I'm going to eat it raw. I bet there's more nutrition in it. The raw eggs work well. That was a bad idea, right? I mean, I looked into try to get some Amish farmers to give me some raw milk, because raw milk's highly anabolic as well, but not as good. There's homogenized milk, which isn't as good, which you buy at the store. So anyway, guys, if there was a food that I could eat that would help me, of course, 100% legal, I was all over it, right? I think the coaches thought I was crazy. Coaches brought me in the office one time. Like, this cannot, like everything in moderation, this cannot be great. I was like, no, like I was doing keto before anybody heard about keto. I was shredded up, and people were like, whoa, should eat more carbs, should he not? But I would carb load on Tuesdays and Fridays, pregame meal, I eat Fridays. And then, whenever you carb load when you're on keto, people know you got to go to the bathroom. So I would always unload everything Saturday morning and feel really light before the game at 11. I mean, we can go into all the routine. As Urban Meyer says, bad players have a quote, average players have a system, is a paraphrase, but great players have a routine. And I had the routine down for each week of the season and everything else. So I was obsessed, and I think it led to some of my success because if you do that routine, you get confidence, right? Like you get faith in your routine. Like I'm doing this we're going to turn this thing around. I'm going to study everything. Nobody's going to be able to. And there was a borderline obsession. So, I mean, I'm the guy that told my future wife when we started hanging out, I can hang out with you Thursday night for a little bit after I get done watching all my film. And if we went on Friday, after I hang out with the guys, I can hang out with you. She looked at me cross-eyed. Maybe that's how it took me 3 years to get a date, right? Because I was that obsessed about football. I'm the guy that also, I just keep going on here. I mean, there's a rule, and it was at the University of Illinois that, you know, I got my undergrad degree in 3 years. I was doing my master's program, and I only had like 3 hours left for that fall semester of 2017 of 2007 to get my degree. And you usually have to take 12 hours, but if you only have 3 left to get a degree, you only have to take. So I took 3 hours of class the whole semester and basically studied film 25 hours a week, you know? And so it was like, it was amazing. It was just football, and, you know, those are the times, but those are the memories we think about and talk about. So.
Well, Jay, it worked. It worked out for you, right? So
it worked. I mean, we have a great season, great memories, but, you know, you got to get into the mind of a 22-year-old guy who wants to be the best he can be and turn a program around. And, you know, looking back and hearing me say that stuff, it's borderline crazy, right? And the coaches thought I was crazy, but I knew I had to do something to give me an edge. I mean, my faith's very important. So I was praying all the time. I was eating all the time. I was exercising. I was cold tubbing. Like I would cold tub. I would contrast back and forth for like 30 minutes at a time, 5 minutes cold, 5 minutes hot, 5 minutes cold, 5 minutes hot, studying plays, going over stuff. I mean, I just do all that stuff, you know, because I wanted this program to turn out. I wanted to have a great season because you get a short window to really be great. And so you guys didn't think that question was going to lead to that, but there you go.
Great. It's the question of the day. Jay, no words, man. Just thank you. That was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for always listening and tuning in. Thanks for your questions.